The cardboard box slipped from Maya's hands for the third time that night, spilling packages across the loading dock like oversized confetti. Her fingers were numb from the February cold, and the thin delivery jacket she'd bought at Goodwill did absolutely nothing against Chicago's brutal wind. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work, so if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Chen, her supervisor barked from inside the warehouse. You're falling behind again. Pick up the pace or clock out early. Clocking out early meant losing money she desperately needed. Maya scrambled to gather the packages, her knees protesting as she knelt on the frozen concrete. 28 years old, and her body already felt ancient, worn down by 3 years of working 70-hour weeks just to stay barely afloat. She loaded the last box into her beat-up Honda Civic. The passenger door held shut with duct tape because the latch had been broken 6 months ago and she couldn't afford to fix it. The car's check engine light glowed like an angry eye on the dashboard, mocking her with problems she had no money to solve. 11 more deliveries. Then she could go home to her basement studio, where the landlord still hadn't fixed the heat, wrap herself in every blanket she owned, and maybe, if she was lucky, sleep for 4 hours before her morning shift at the coffee shop. Maya pulled up her delivery app and studied the route. Most of the addresses were in her usual territory, in the middle-class neighborhoods on Chicago's north side where people tipped okay and didn't ask too many questions about why their packages arrived at 10:30 at night. But the last address made her pause. 1500 North Lake Shore Drive, the Gold Coast, where people had doormen and marble lobbies and the kind of money that made Maya's entire existence feel like a joke. Maya rubbed her tired eyes and started the engine. The heater sputtered, pathetically, blowing air that was only slightly warmer than the freezing temperature outside. She'd deal with the fancy neighborhood last, after she'd finished the normal deliveries. Rich people could wait. 2 hours later, Maya sat in her car outside the Lakeshore Drive address, staring up at a building that looked like it belonged in a movie. Glass and steel rose 30 stories into the night sky, every window glowing with warm light. A doorman in an actual uniform stood beneath a heated awning, his breath not even visible in the cold because he was that protected from the elements. Maya looked down at the package in her lap. Children's books, according to the label. The complete Braille learning collection printed on the side of the box. She gathered her courage and stepped out of her car, immediately regretting it as the wind cut through her thin jacket like knives. The doorman watched her approach with the kind of expression people reserved for stray dogs that wandered into expensive neighborhoods. Delivery, Maya said, her teeth chattering. For apartment 30A. The doorman's expression shifted slightly. Not quite fear, but something close to it. The penthouse? I guess. It just says 30A on my app. He picked up a phone inside his little heated booth, speaking in low tones to someone on the other end. Maya shifted from foot to foot, trying to generate any warmth in her frozen limbs. Through the building's glass doors, she could see a lobby with actual marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than she'd earn in her entire lifetime. You can go up? The doorman said finally, hanging up the phone. But security will meet you at the elevator. Security. Of course, rich people had security. Maya signed in at the front desk, where another uniformed employee watched her like she might steal the fancy pens chained to the counter. The elevator was larger than her entire studio apartment, with mirrors on every wall that reflected her. Exhausted face back at her from multiple angles. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide anymore. Hair pulled into a messy ponytail because she'd stopped caring about appearances around the same time she'd stopped being able to afford regular haircuts. The delivery jacket with someone else's name still stitched on the front because the uniform deposit had been too expensive. The elevator rose smoothly, quietly, the kind of engineering that whispered wealth with every floor that passed. 25, 26, 27. Maya watched the numbers climb and tried not to think about how far she was from the ground, from escape, from anything familiar. At the 30th floor, the elevator doors opened directly into a private foyer. Not a hallway with multiple apartments, but a single foyer with marble floors and a door that probably cost more than her car. 2 men in dark suits stood waiting. They weren't security guards in the Fend, traditional sense. These were the kind of men who made you instinctively understand that they were dangerous, that they'd done things normal people only read about in crime novels. Package for 30A? Maya managed, her voice smaller than she'd intended. One of the men, older with gray at his temples, stepped forward and took the box from her hands. He examined the label carefully, then looked at Maya with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail about her in seconds. Wait here, he said simply. He disappeared through the penthouse door, leaving Maya standing in the foyer with the second man, who hadn't spoken at all but watched her with the intensity of a predator deciding if something was prey or not. Maya pulled out her phone, preparing to mark the delivery as complete so she could leave this unsettling place. But before she could tap the screen, she heard something that made her freeze. Crying. A child crying, muffled but unmistakable, coming from inside the penthouse. Then a man's voice, deep and frustrated. "Sofia, please. I don't understand what you need." More crying, escalating into the kind of sobbing that spoke of deep frustration and loneliness. "Please, baby. Talk to me. Tell me what's wrong." The gray-haired man emerged from the apartment looking harried. Behind him, Maya caught a glimpse of a massive living space, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, and a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting on a white couch with her hands covering her face. "The boss needs a few more minutes," the man said to Maya. "There's a situation," the crying continued, breaking Maya's heart with every sob. She knew that sound. She'd made that sound herself once, a lifetime ago, when the world felt too big and too cruel, and no one seemed to understand. "Is she okay?" Maya asked quietly. Both men looked at her with surprise, as if they'd forgotten she was capable of speech. "She's fine," the gray-haired man said shortly. "Just upset." But Maya could hear that the little girl wasn't fine at all. And then, in the moment of silence between sobs, she heard the child's voice, small and desperate. "I can't read them, Papa. I can't read the books. Everyone at school reads, and I can't, and I'll never be able to, and I'm stupid." "You're not stupid, Sofia. You're the smartest girl in the world. We'll figure this out. You said the special books would help, but I can't understand them, and my fingers don't know what they're supposed to feel, and I hate it. I hate it. I hate being blind." Maya's breath caught. The Braille books. That's what she'd delivered. Without thinking, without considering the consequences, Maya took a step toward the open penthouse door. The younger guard moved to block her, but she met his eyes with a determination that surprised even herself. "I know Braille," she said firmly. "I can help." The gray-haired man's expression shifted from dismissive to calculating. "You know Braille." "My little brother was blind from birth. I learned when I was 12 so I could read to him, help him with homework, teach him how to navigate the world." Maya's throat tightened with the old grief. "I taught him for 6 years before he died." The words hung in the cold air of the foyer. Inside the penthouse, Sofia's crying had quieted slightly, as if she sensed something changing. "Wait here," the gray-haired man said again. But this time his tone was different. Less dismissive, more urgent. He disappeared inside. Maya heard low voices, intense conversation she couldn't quite make out. Then the door opened wider, and a man appeared who made Maya's breath stop completely. He was probably in his early 40s, with black hair touched with silver at the temples, and eyes so dark they looked almost black. He wore an expensive suit with the tie loosened, the top button undone, as if he'd been fighting with the constraints of formality all evening. His face was carved from sharp angles and old sorrows, handsome, in a way that felt almost dangerous. But it was the exhaustion in his eyes that struck Maya most, the kind of bone-deep weariness that came from watching someone you loved suffer and being powerless to help. "You know Braille," he said. Not a question, but a statement that demanded truth. "Yes, I learned it from my brother. I'm not an expert, but I'm fluent enough to read and write it." The man studied her face with an intensity that made Maya feel exposed, as if he could see past her cheap jacket and exhausted appearance to something deeper inside. "My daughter just received her first Braille books," he said quietly. "I hired 3 different tutors, but she refuses to work with them. Says they don't understand, that they make her feel stupid." His jaw tightened with frustration and pain. "She's been crying for an hour. I don't know how to help her." Maya's heart clenched. She thought about her brother Tommy, about the early days when everything felt impossible, when his small fingers, I couldn't distinguish between the raised dots, and he'd thrown his learning books across the room in frustration. "It's hard at first," Maya said softly. "The dots feel random and meaningless. Your brain hasn't learned the patterns yet. It's like trying to hear music in static." The man's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Hope, maybe. Or recognition that someone finally understood. "Could you?" He paused, as if the request was difficult to form. "Would you be willing to spend a few minutes with her, just to see if you can calm her down?" Maya looked at her phone. She still had 3 more deliveries waiting, and her supervisor would be furious if she fell further behind. She'd probably lose this job, just like she'd lost the last one and the one before that. But she thought about Tommy's face when she'd finally helped him read his first word in Braille. The pure joy of unlocking a door that had seemed permanently closed. "Yes," Maya said simply. "I'll help." The man's shoulders dropped slightly, as if he'd been holding tension he could finally release. He extended his hand. "Dante Caruso." Maya shook his hand, feeling the strength in his grip. The calluses that spoke of a life more complicated than expensive suits suggested. "Maya Chen." "Thank you, Miss Chen." Dante stepped aside, gesturing her into the penthouse. "More than you could possibly know." Maya walked through the door into a world of wealth beyond anything she'd ever imagined, completely unaware that her life had just changed forever. The penthouse was stunning in a way that made Maya feel like she'd stepped into another dimension. The floors were white marble veined with gold, reflecting the light from modern chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a view of Lake Michigan stretching into darkness, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. But Maya's attention went immediately to the little girl on the couch. Sofia Caruso had her father's dark hair falling in loose waves around a heart-shaped face. She wore pink pajamas printed with unicorns, and her small hands were clenched into fists in her lap. Her eyes, Maya noticed, were clouded with the telltale opacity of congenital blindness, but they were beautiful, a deep brown that seemed to look past the physical world into something deeper. Scattered around her were the Braille books from Maya's delivery, their pages open but clearly abandoned. Sofia's face was blotchy from crying, her small shoulders still shaking with the occasional sob. "Sofia," Dante said gently, kneeling beside the couch, "there's someone here who wants to meet you." The little girl turned her face toward her father's voice, but her expression was closed off, defensive. "I don't want another tutor, Papa. They don't understand." "I'm not a tutor," Maya said softly, staying near the entrance. "I'm just a delivery driver who happened to bring your books tonight." Sofia's head turned toward Maya's voice, curiosity flickering across her features. "You're a delivery person? The worst one in Chicago, probably. I dropped your package twice on the way up here." Maya took a few careful steps closer. "I'm Maya. And you're right, those books are really hard at first. You've seen them before?" Sofia's voice carried a desperate hope. "I've used them before. My little brother was blind, just like you. When I was 12 and he was 6, we learned Braille together." Maya sat down on the coffee table across from Sofia, close enough to talk but not so close that she invaded the girl's space. "And let me tell you, we were terrible at it for months." Sofia's hands unclenched slightly. "Really?" "Really. Tommy used to get so frustrated he'd throw the books across the room. Once he threw one so hard it knocked over my mom's favorite lamp." Maya smiled at the memory, even though it hurt. Mom wasn't happy about the lamp, but she understood. "What happened to your brother?" Sofia asked, her intuition sharp. "You said was blind." Maya's throat tightened, but she didn't look away from Sofia's clouded eyes. The girl deserved honesty. "He got sick when he was 12. A kind of cancer that moves really fast. He died before the doctors could do much to help." Sofia was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, did he learn to read Braille before he died? He did, and not just simple stuff. By the time he was 11, he was reading Harry Potter in Braille. All 7 books. Maya's voice warmed with pride. "He was amazing. I want to read Harry Potter," Sofia whispered. "Everyone at my school talks about it, but the audiobooks aren't the same. I want to read the actual words with my own fingers." Maya leaned forward slightly. "You will. I promise you, Sofia. Your brain is already smart enough. Your fingers just need practice learning the code." "The code?" "That's what Braille is. A secret code where every letter is made of dots in different patterns. Your fingers are going to become plush. Code breakers." Maya picked up one of the abandoned books. "Can I show you something? A trick Tommy and I figured out that the tutors never taught us?" Sofia nodded eagerly, sitting up straighter. Maya opened the book to the first page, where the Braille alphabet was displayed. She took Sofia's small hand gently, noticing how delicate her fingers were, how uncertain her touch. "Everyone tells you to press down and feel the dots, right?" Maya said. "Yes, but they all feel the same to me. Just bumps." "That's because you're trying too hard. Here's the secret." Maya guided Sofia's fingertip to the first letter. "Pretend your finger is a feather. Barely touch it. So light you're almost not touching it at all." Sofia's brow furrowed in concentration as she followed Maya's instruction, her fingertip just barely grazing the raised dots. Now move across it slow, like you're petting a butterfly. Don't press, just drift. Sofia's finger moved across the letter A, her expression intense. Then, suddenly, her face lit up like someone had turned on the sun. I can feel them, she gasped. There's 2 dots, one on top of the other. That's the letter A, Maya said, her own voice thick with emotion. You just read your first letter, Sofia. Behind them, Maya heard Dante draw in a sharp breath, but she kept her focus on Sofia. Can we do another one? Sofia asked, her entire body vibrating with excitement. We can do as many as you want. For the next 20 minutes, Maya guided Sofia through the alphabet, using the featherlight technique that had finally unlocked Braille for Tommy all those years ago. Sofia was a quick learner, her fingers growing more confident with each letter, her frustration transforming into joy. The letter M, Sofia announced proudly. 4 dots in a square. Perfect. You're a natural. Maya, look. Sofia found the letter S on her own, her finger barely touching the pattern. This one looks like a little staircase going down. Maya glanced up and caught Dante watching them from across the room. He'd moved to stand by the windows, but his attention was fixed entirely on his daughter. The expression on his face was complex, intense gratitude mixed with something deeper that Maya couldn't quite identify. Their eyes met across the expensive living room, and Maya felt something shift in the air between them. Recognition, maybe, or the understanding that this moment mattered in ways neither of them had anticipated. Papa, Sofia called out, breaking the moment. Maya taught me the secret. I can read the code now. Dante crossed the room in quick strides, kneeling beside the couch where his daughter sat with her new books. Show me, baby. Show me what you learned. Sofia's small fingers flew over the page, calling out letters with growing confidence. Maya watched Dante's face transform as he listened to his daughter read, watched the way his jaw tightened with emotion he was clearly trying to control. When Sofia finished, demonstrating her new skill, Dante pulled her into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, Sofia. So incredibly proud. It's because Maya knows the secret, Sofia said, her voice muffled against her father's chest. The tutors never told me about the feather fingers. Dante looked at Maya over his daughter's head, and the gratitude in his eyes was so intense it made Maya's chest ache. Can Maya come back? Sofia asked suddenly, pulling away from her father. Can she teach me more? Please, Papa? Dante stood slowly, his expression careful. Miss Chen probably has other deliveries to make, other places to be. Maya checked her phone, and her stomach dropped. 7 missed calls from her supervisor, 4 angry texts. The other deliveries were now over an hour late. She was definitely fired. Actually, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. I should probably go. But Sofia, you keep practicing with those feather fingers, okay? You're going to be reading Harry Potter before you know it. But you'll come back? Sofia's face fell, the joy draining away. You have to come back. You're the only one who understands. Maya looked at Dante helplessly. She couldn't make promises to this child that she had no way of keeping. She was a broke delivery driver who'd just lost her job. The penthouse, the fancy building, the Gold Coast. This wasn't her world. Miss Chen, Dante said quietly, may I speak with you privately for a moment? He gestured toward a hallway leading deeper into the penthouse. Maya followed, acutely aware of how out of place she looked in this space, her cheap jacket and worn sneakers leaving invisible marks of poverty on the pristine marble floors. Dante led her to what appeared to be a home office, all dark wood and leather, with a desk that probably cost more than Maya's entire year of rent. He closed the door gently behind them. How much do they pay you? He asked directly. The delivery service. Maya blinked at the sudden question. $12 an hour plus tips, but I probably just got fired. So, what about your other jobs? How did you know I have other jobs? Dante's expression was unreadable. You have calluses on your hands from hot coffee cups. You smell faintly of espresso, and you're too exhausted for someone who only works one job. He paused. Coffee shop? Maya nodded slowly, unsettled by how quickly he'd read her. Morning shift, 6 to noon. Then I usually sleep for a few hours before the delivery shift. And that's enough to live on? No. The word came out more bitter than Maya intended, but it's what I have. Dante walked to his desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a leather checkbook. I have a proposition for you. Let me finish. His voice carried a quiet authority that made Maya's protest die in her throat. My daughter needs someone who understands her. Someone who can teach her Braille, yes, but more than that. Someone who knows what it's like to navigate the world without sight. Someone who treats her blindness as a code to crack, not a tragedy to pity. Maya's heart began to pound. Mr. Caruso, I want to hire you as Sofia's tutor, full-time. You'd come here every day, work with her for as many hours as she needs. Dante named a salary that made Maya's knees weak. It was more than she made working 80 hours a week at both her jobs. Health insurance included. Paid vacation. You'd start immediately. Maya felt like the floor had tilted beneath her. That's too much. I'm not qualified. I'm just a delivery driver who learned Braille for her brother. You gave my daughter hope in 20 minutes. 3 professional tutors couldn't do that in 2 months. Dante's eyes bored into hers. That makes you more qualified than anyone. But I don't have teaching credentials, or Sofia doesn't need credentials. She needs someone who sees her as a person, not a problem to solve. Dante's voice softened, slightly. Will you at least consider it? Maya thought about her basement studio, the broken heater, the bills piling up on the counter that she couldn't pay. She thought about the desperate exhaustion of working 2 jobs and still falling further behind every month. She thought about Sofia's face lighting up when she read her first letter, the pure joy of discovery. Yes, Maya heard herself say. I'll consider it. Good. Dante wrote something on a check and handed it to her. This is for tonight. Consider it a consultation fee. Maya looked at the check and her vision blurred. $5,000. I can't accept this. I was only here for 20 minutes. You unlocked something in my daughter that I've been desperately trying to reach for months. You gave me my happy little girl back, even if only for a moment. Dante's voice carried the weight of unspoken pain. That's worth far more than $5,000. Maya stared at the check, at the number that represented more money than she'd had at one time in years. Her practical side screamed to take it, to cash it immediately, to pay off the crushing debt that was slowly drowning her. But her cautious side whispered warnings about men with this much money, this much power, this kind of casual authority. Think about my offer, Dante said, moving toward the office door. Take a few days. Talk to Sofia a few more times if you want to make sure you're comfortable with the arrangement. He opened the door, and they walked back to the living room, where Sofia was carefully practicing her letters, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration the way children did when they were fully focused. Maya. Sofia's face lit up. I found the letter of your name, M-A-Y-A, 4 dots, 2 dots under 1 dot, 2 dots next to each other, and 2 dots under 1 dot again. Maya knelt beside the couch, checking Sofia's work. Perfect. You're already reading. Will you come back tomorrow? Sofia asked hopefully. Please? I want to learn more letters. Maya glanced at Dante, who watched them with an expression she couldn't quite read. I'll come back, Maya said, the words feeling both terrifying and exactly right. I promise. Sofia threw her small arms around Maya's neck, hugging her with the fierce enthusiasm only children possessed. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for understanding. As Maya said goodnight and headed toward the door, accompanied by the gray-haired man who'd first greeted her, she heard Sofia call out one more time. Maya, will you teach me to read Harry Potter? Maya turned back, smiling despite the tears threatening to spill. Every single word, Sofia. I promise. The door closed behind her, and Maya stood in the private foyer, the check still clutched in her hand, trying to process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed, a text from her delivery supervisor. You're fired. Don't bother coming back for your final check. Maya should have felt devastated. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Hope, fragile and unexpected, taking root in the ruins of her old life. She didn't know it yet, but everything had just changed. The girl she'd been an hour ago, struggling and alone, was already becoming someone new. Someone who'd just caught the attention of one of the most dangerous men in Chicago. Maya stood outside the Golden Bean coffee shop at 5:45 the next morning, watching through the window as her former manager Jake counted the register. She'd come to collect her last paycheck, even though he'd told her over text not to bother. $217. She'd calculated it 3 times. That money was hers, and she needed every penny. The check from Dante Caruso sat in her wallet like a secret. She hadn't cashed it yet, hadn't even told anyone about it. Part of her worried that if she went to the bank, they'd laugh and tell her it was fake, some kind of elaborate joke. Jake finally unlocked the door at 6, his expression already annoyed. "What are you doing here, Chen?" "My paycheck. Labor law says you have to give it to me within 24 hours of termination." "I mailed it." "No, you didn't. I checked with the post office." "Give me my check, Jake." He disappeared into the back office, muttering about people who didn't know when to let things go. When he returned, he practically threw the envelope at her. "You were always more trouble than you were worth," he said. "Showed up late half the time, fell asleep during the morning rush. I worked 2 jobs, Jake, 80 hours a week, and I was late exactly 3 times in 2 years. Whatever. Good luck finding someone else who'll hire you with your track record." Maya took her check and walked out without responding. She'd learned that arguing with people like Jake was pointless. They'd already decided who you were, and nothing you said would change their minds. She deposited both checks at the bank's ATM, holding her breath as she waited for the transaction to process. When the receipt printed showing her new balance, Maya had to read it twice to make sure it was real. $5,217. More money than she'd had since her parents died, and the medical bills had consumed everything they'd left behind. Maya walked to the bus stop in a daze, clutching her receipt like a winning lottery ticket. She had enough money to pay rent for 3 months, enough to fix her car, enough to buy groceries without calculating every item's cost, enough to breathe for the first time in 3 years. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Good morning, Miss Chen. This is Marco Vitelli, Mr. Caruso's head of security. We met briefly last night. Mr. Caruso would like to know if you've given thought to his offer. Sofia has asked about you 3 times already this morning." Maya stared at the message. Head of security. That's what the gray-haired man was. Not just a guard or an assistant, but someone important enough to have a title. She typed back, "I'd like to meet with Sofia a few more times before making a decision. Is that possible?" The response came immediately. "Of course. Would you be available this afternoon? 2 p.m.? Maya checked her schedule out of habit, then remembered she didn't have a schedule anymore. No coffee shop shift, no delivery route, just empty hours stretching ahead of her. "Yes, 2 p.m. works." "Excellent. A car will pick you up. Please send your address." Maya hesitated. Her basement studio was in one of Chicago's rougher neighborhoods, the kind of place where people didn't ask too many questions and landlords didn't fix broken things. She felt a flush of shame imagining someone from Dante Caruso's world seeing where she lived, but she sent the address anyway. Pride was a luxury she'd given up a long time ago. At exactly 1:45, a black town car pulled up outside her building. Not a limousine, nothing ostentatious, but clearly expensive. The kind of vehicle that made her neighbors peer through their windows with curiosity and suspicion. Marco stepped out, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than 3 months of Maya's rent. His eyes scanned the street with professional efficiency, cataloging threats and exits with the kind of attention that made Maya suddenly aware of how unsafe her neighborhood actually was. "Miss Chen," he said politely, opening the back door for her. "Thank you for agreeing to come." Maya slid into the car, feeling completely out of place on the leather seats. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and newness, everything pristine and perfect. "How is Sofia today?" Maya asked as Marco pulled away from the curb. "Excited. She's been practicing her letters all morning." Marco glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "She told her father that you're the first person who's ever made her feel smart." Maya's throat tightened. "She is smart. Incredibly smart. Mr. Caruso knows that. But Sofia hasn't believed it about herself. Not until you." They drove in silence for a few minutes, heading toward the Gold Coast. Maya watched the neighborhoods change through the window, the buildings growing taller and cleaner, the people on the sidewalks better dressed. The distance between her world and Dante Caruso's measured in more than just miles. "Miss Chen," Marco said carefully, "may I speak candidly?" "Of course. Mr. Caruso is a good man, a complicated man, but a good father. He loves his daughter more than anything in this world." Marco's eyes met hers in the mirror. "But his world is challenging. If you accept his offer, there will be aspects of his life that may be difficult for you to understand or accept." Maya's pulse quickened. "What kind of aspects?" "The kind that require discretion, loyalty, the ability to see what's in front of you and understand that some questions are better left unasked." The implication hung in the air between them. Maya wasn't stupid. She'd seen enough movies, read enough news articles. Men with Dante Caruso's kind of money and security didn't usually earn it through completely legal means. Is Sofia in danger? Maya asked quietly. Sofia is the most protected child in Chicago. No harm will ever come to her. Marco's voice was absolute. And if you become part of her life, that protection extends to you as well. I don't need protection. I'm nobody. You became somebody the moment you helped his daughter. Marco pulled up to the familiar building on Lakeshore Drive. In Mr. Caruso's world, that changes everything. The doorman recognized Maya this time, greeting her with a respectful nod instead of suspicion. The elevator ride felt less surreal, though Maya's heart still pounded as the numbers climbed toward 30. But this time, when the doors opened, it wasn't just Marco waiting. Sofia stood in the foyer, bouncing excitedly on her toes, her hands reaching toward the sound of the elevator. Is it Maya? Is she here? I'm here, Maya said, stepping forward. Sofia launched herself toward Maya's voice, and Maya caught her in a hug, steadying the excited little girl. I practiced so much, Sofia said, grabbing Maya's hand and pulling her into the penthouse. I can do the whole alphabet now. Well, almost. The letter W is really hard because it has so many dots. W is tricky, Maya agreed, letting herself be led through the stunning living room. It took my brother Tommy forever to get that one right. They settled on the couch, and Sofia immediately pulled out her Braille books, her fingers finding the pages with growing confidence. Maya watched as the little girl demonstrated her progress, calling out letters with only occasional mistakes. This is incredible, Sofia. You're learning so fast. It's because you taught me the secret. Sofia's face was radiant. The feather fingers make everything different. They worked for over an hour, Maya introducing simple 3-letter words, teaching Sofia how the patterns flowed together to create meaning. Cat, dog, Sunday mom. Sofia's finger froze on that last word, her expression crumpling. Sofia? Maya asked gently. What's wrong? I don't have a mom anymore, Sofia whispered. She died when I was 4. I barely remember her. Maya's heart broke. She pulled Sofia closer, wrapping an arm around the small shoulders. I lost my parents too, and my brother, so I understand how that feels. Does it stop hurting? It changes. The hurt becomes different. Softer, maybe, like an old bruise instead of a fresh one. Maya chose her words carefully. But the love doesn't go away. That stays forever. Sofia leaned against Maya, quiet for a moment. Then, will you stay? Will you be my teacher for real? I'm thinking about it very seriously. Papa really wants you to stay. I heard him tell Marco that you're the answer to his prayers. Sofia's clouded eyes turned toward Maya's face with eerie accuracy. He doesn't pray very much, so that means it's important. Before Maya could respond, she heard footsteps, and Dante appeared in the living room. He'd clearly just come from somewhere, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder, tie loosened, his dark hair slightly disheveled. But when he saw Sofia and Maya together on the couch, his entire expression softened. How's the lesson going? He asked. Maya taught me real words, Papa. Cat and dog and sun. Sofia bounced excitedly. And she's going to teach me Harry Potter soon. That's wonderful, baby. Dante moved closer, and Maya caught the faint scent of his cologne, something expensive and understated. Why don't you go practice in your room for a little while? I need to speak with Miss Chen about some boring adult things. Sofia pouted but obediently gathered her books. Before leaving, she turned back toward Maya. You're coming back tomorrow, right? I'll be here, Maya promised, unable to deny the hope in the little girl's voice. After Sofia disappeared down the hallway, Dante sat in the chair, across from Maya, suddenly looking exhausted. He rubbed his face with both hands, and Maya noticed for the first time that he had faint scars on his knuckles, the kind that came from repeated impacts. Thank you, he said quietly, for coming back, for keeping your promise to her. She's an amazing kid. She is. Dante leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Her mother died in a car accident 4 years ago. Sofia was in the car. That's actually how she lost her sight. There was damage to her optic nerves from the impact. Maya's breath caught. Oh God. She doesn't remember the accident, thank God. The trauma doctors say her mind blocked it out. Dante's voice was rough with old pain. But she remembers her mother, asks about her constantly, wants to know what she looked like, what her voice sounded like, what it felt like to be held by her. That must be so hard for you. The worst part is knowing that Sofia thinks her blindness makes her less than other children, that she's broken somehow. Dante's dark eyes met Maya's. Until you showed up and taught her that her fingers could read codes, that her blindness wasn't a disability but a different way of seeing the world. Maya felt the weight of his gratitude, his desperation for someone to help his daughter feel whole. "I want to accept your offer," Maya said, the words coming out before she'd fully thought them through. "But I need to understand something first." "Ask anything." "Marco implied that your world is complicated, that there are things I'd need to be discreet about." Maya forced herself to meet Dante's gaze directly. "I need to know what I'm walking into. Because if Sofia gets attached to me and then I have to leave because I can't handle whatever your life involves, that will hurt her. And I won't do that to a child who's already lost so much." Dante was quiet for a long moment, studying Maya's face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "You're right to ask," he finally said. "You deserve honesty." He stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the lake. "My family has been in Chicago for 4 generations. We own legitimate businesses. Restaurants, real estate, construction, everything above board and legal. But," Maya prompted, "but we also have connections to people and organizations that operate in gray areas. Not drugs," he added quickly. "Never drugs, but protection services, conflict resolution. The kind of business that happens in rooms without witnesses." Maya's hands tightened in her lap. "You're in the Mafia. That's what the newspapers call it. What the FBI calls it when they're investigating us, which they do regularly and find nothing because we're very careful." Dante turned back to face her. "But yes, Miss Chen, my family has connections to organized crime. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise." The room felt very quiet suddenly. Maya thought about Sofia's joy when she learned to read, about the little girl's desperate need for someone who understood her. She thought about the money Dante was offering, the security, the chance to do work that actually mattered. And she thought about her brother Tommy, about how their parents had worked themselves to death, trying to pay for his medical care and his special education, about how the system had failed them over and over, how the legitimate world had offered them nothing but bills and broken promises. "If I accept," Maya said slowly, "my only concern is Sofia, her education, her well-being, her happiness. I don't want to know about your business. I don't want to be involved in any capacity beyond teaching your daughter." "Agreed completely. And if I ever feel like Sofia is in danger, or if I think my presence is putting her at risk, I leave immediately. No questions, no obligations. You'd be putting her at less risk, not more," Dante said. "Having someone she trusts, someone who makes her happy, that makes her safer, happier. Children are more careful, more aware of their surroundings." Maya took a deep breath. "Then yes, I'll accept your offer. I'll be Sofia's tutor." Something shifted in Dante's expression, relief and something deeper that Maya couldn't quite identify. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. I have one more condition. Name it. I want to meet with a lawyer, someone independent, not connected to you. I want a formal employment contract that protects both of us, makes everything clear and legal." Dante smiled slightly. "Smart. I'll have Marco arrange it. My lawyer can recommend someone completely independent if you'd like." "That would be good. When can you start? Officially?" Maya thought about her empty apartment, her complete lack of obligations now that both her jobs were gone. "Monday? That gives me a few days to get my affairs in order." "Perfect. Marco will help you with anything you need. Transportation, supplies for teaching, anything at all." They shook hands, and Maya felt the warmth of his grip, the strength in his fingers. She was making a deal with a dangerous man, stepping into a world she didn't understand, tying her future to a child she'd known for less than 24 hours. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like finally stepping onto solid ground after years of drowning. Maya spent the weekend in a blur of activity. She met with the independent lawyer Dante's people recommended, a sharp woman named Victoria Chen, who reviewed the employment contract with a fine-tooth comb. "This is extraordinarily generous," Victoria said, spreading the documents across her desk. "Full health insurance, dental, vision, 4 weeks paid vacation, a signing bonus of $20,000. She looked at Maya over her reading glasses. "What exactly are you teaching this child?" "Braille, and just being there for her. For this salary, you could hire 3 full-time tutors and a nanny." Victoria tapped the contract. Mr. Caruso must. I'll value you very highly. His daughter needs someone who understands her. I lost my brother to illness. He was blind. I know what she's going through. Victoria's expression softened. Well, the contract is solid. Everything is above board legally. You're classified as a private tutor, not household staff, which gives you more protections. And there's a very generous severance clause if either party terminates the agreement. Maya signed the papers with trembling hands, making it official. On Sunday, Marco picked her up and drove her to a medical clinic in a gleaming office building downtown. Part of your employment package, he explained. Complete physical, dental exam, vision screening. Mr. Caruso wants to make sure you're healthy. The doctors were efficient and kind, treating Maya like she actually mattered rather than just another charity case. When was the last time she'd seen a dentist? 3 years? 4? The hygienist who cleaned her teeth was shocked at the state of her gums, gently scolding her about neglecting her health. I couldn't afford it, Maya said simply. The hygienist's expression shifted to understanding. Well, you're covered now. We'll get you fixed up. That evening, Marco took her shopping. Not to a thrift store or a discount outlet, but to actual stores with window displays and attentive salespeople. Mr. Caruso wants you to have appropriate attire, Marco explained as they entered a boutique that made Maya feel like a trespasser. You'll be accompanying Sofia to various appointments and activities. You should feel confident in what you're wearing. A woman in an elegant black dress approached them with a professional smile. Good evening. How can I help you today? Miss Chen needs a complete wardrobe, Marco said smoothly. Casual professional attire, suitable for working with a child but presentable for public outings. Price is not a concern. The woman's eyes lit up. Of course. Right this way, Miss Chen. 2 hours later, Maya left the boutique with 6 bags of clothes. Soft cashmere sweaters, well-fitted jeans, comfortable but stylish shoes, a professional blazer that made her look like someone important. The total cost made her dizzy, but Marco handed over a credit card without blinking. This is too much, Maya protested as they loaded the bags into the car. I don't need this many clothes. Mr. Caruso wants you to feel comfortable, Marco said. You're representing his family now. That comes with certain standards. Representing his family. The words felt heavy with implications. Maya wasn't sure she understood yet. On Monday morning, Marco picked her up at 7:30. Maya wore one of her new outfits, dark jeans and a cream-colored sweater that felt like wearing a cloud. Her reflection in the car window looked like someone else entirely, someone confident and put together, not the exhausted delivery driver who'd been one missed paycheck away from homelessness. Nervous? Marco asked. Terrified. He smiled slightly. That's normal. But you'll be fine. Sofia hasn't stopped talking about you all weekend. They arrived at the penthouse, and this time the elevator ride felt less like ascending to another world and more like going to work. A strange kind of work, but work nonetheless. Sofia was waiting in the foyer, practically vibrating with excitement. Maya, you're really here. You're really going to teach me every day? Every single day, Maya confirmed, kneeling to Sofia's level. Ready to learn more about the code? So ready. They established a routine over the next week. Every morning at 8, Maya arrived at the penthouse. They worked on Braille for 2 hours, then took a break for snacks and conversation. After lunch, they practiced what Sofia called real-life skills, navigating rooms, identifying objects by touch, learning to pour drinks and prepare simple foods without sight. Sofia soaked up everything like a sponge, her confidence growing daily. But more than that, she opened up about her fears, her loneliness, her complicated feelings about being different from other children. The kids at school stare at me, Sofia admitted one afternoon as they practiced folding laundry by feel. I can't see them, but I know they're staring. I can hear them whispering. People stare at things they don't understand, Maya said gently. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means they haven't learned yet that different doesn't mean less. Did kids stare at your brother? All the time. Tommy used to make up funny stories about why he was blind. Once he told a kid that he'd looked directly at the sun during an eclipse and his eyes exploded. Maya smiled at the memory. The kid ran away screaming. Sofia giggled. That's mean. A little. But Tommy said if people were going to be rude, he might as well have fun with it. These moments, these conversations, felt more important than any formal lesson. Maya was teaching Sofia more than Braille. She was teaching her how to exist in a world that wasn't built for her, how to find strength in difference rather than shame. Dante watched them sometimes, standing in doorways or sitting in his office with the door cracked open. Maya would catch him observing with an expression that made her chest tighten. Not attraction, exactly, though there was something charged in the air when their eyes met, more like recognition, as if he'd been searching for something and finally found it. On Friday of Maya's first week, everything changed. She and Sofia were in the living room, working through a Braille version of Charlotte's Web, when the elevator doors opened and 3 men stepped into the penthouse. Marco immediately moved in front of Maya and Sofia, his body language shifting from relaxed to combat-ready in an instant. 2 other security guards Maya had learned were named Tony and Luca materialized from elsewhere in the apartment. "Gentlemen," Marco said, his voice cold. "You weren't announced." The man in the center was probably in his 60s, with silver hair and a face like aged leather. He wore an expensive suit and moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in his entire life. "I don't need to be announced, Marco," the man said, his voice carrying a slight Italian accent. "This is family business." Dante emerged from his office, his expression carefully neutral. "Uncle Sal, I wasn't expecting you." "Clearly." Sal's eyes swept the room, landing on Maya and Sofia with uncomfortable intensity. "I heard you hired someone new. Wanted to meet her myself." Maya is Sofia's tutor. She's teaching her Braille. "A tutor who requires 3 armed guards?" Sal's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Interesting." Maya felt Sofia press against her side, the little girl sensing the tension even if she couldn't see it. "Sofia," Dante said gently, "why don't you and Maya continue your lesson in your room?" "But Papa, now baby." The tone left no room for argument. Maya stood, keeping her hand on Sofia's shoulder as she guided the little girl toward the hallway. But as they passed the group of men, Sal stepped directly into their path. "So you're the miracle worker," he said, looking Maya up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. "The delivery girl who's suddenly so important to my nephew's household." "I'm just a teacher," Maya said quietly, trying to move around him. "Just a teacher who lives in the penthouse, drives in Dante's cars, wears expensive clothes." Sal's eyes were calculating. "Forgive my suspicion, Miss Chen, but in our world, trust isn't given lightly." "Uncle Sal," Dante's voice carried a warning. "That's enough." "Is it? Because from where I stand, you've brought a complete stranger into your home, given her unlimited access to your daughter, and done almost no vetting beyond Marco's basic background check." Sal's voice hardened. "That's not like you, Dante. That's sloppy. Dangerous." Maya felt her face flush with embarrassment and fear. She'd been naive to think this would be simple, that she could just teach a little girl and exist in the periphery of Dante's complicated world. "Sofia, go to your room," Dante said, his eyes never leaving his uncle. "Maya, please stay." Sofia squeezed Maya's hand before reluctantly leaving. Maya stood there, acutely aware that she was now the center of attention for 5 dangerous men, none of whom looked particularly happy about her presence. "You want to talk about Maya?" Dante said, his voice deadly quiet. "Fine, let's talk. Marco, show Uncle Sal the file." Marco produced a tablet and handed it to Sal, who scrolled through whatever was displayed with growing interest. "Maya Chen," Marco recited from memory, 28 years old. Parents died when she was 25, buried under medical debt for her younger brother's cancer treatment. Brother Tommy died at age 12. Maya has worked an average of 75 hours per week for the past 3 years, trying to stay afloat. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. No debt beyond student loans and credit cards. No connections to any rival families or law enforcement. "She's clean," Dante added. "Completely clean. The kind of clean that doesn't exist in our world. She helped Sofia because she's a good person who couldn't walk past a blind child struggling, not because she had ulterior motives." Sal handed back the tablet, his expression thoughtful. "And the fact that she now knows where you live, knows your daughter's routines, knows your security patterns, that doesn't concern you?" "What concerns me," Dante said, his voice dropping to something dangerous, "is that my daughter smiled for the first time in months because of Maya. What concerns me is that Sofia finally believes she can learn to read because Maya taught her. What concerns me is that you're standing in my home questioning my judgment about my own child's care." The tension in the room was suffocating. Maya wanted to run, to apologize, to explain that she'd never hurt Sofia or betray Dante's trust, but she stayed frozen, afraid that speaking would make things worse. "I'm just looking out for family," Sal said finally, making sure you're thinking clearly and not being distracted. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. And Maya stays. Sal studied Dante for a long moment, then shifted his gaze to Maya. You understand what you've walked into here, Miss Chen? The kind of family you're now associated with? I understand that I'm teaching a little girl to read, Maya said, finding her voice. Everything else is none of my concern. Something that might have been respect flickered in Sal's eyes. Smart answer. He turned back to Dante. We'll talk later. About the other matter. He left with his 2 associates, the elevator doors closing with a soft ding that felt absurdly cheerful after the confrontation. The moment they were gone, Dante's careful control cracked. He rubbed his face with both hands, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. I apologize, he said to Maya. That was inappropriate and shouldn't have happened. He's right, though, isn't he? Maya's voice was small. I am a stranger. You don't really know me. For all you know, I could be. You're not. Dante's certainty was absolute. I've had people watching you since the night we met. I know about every job you've worked, every bill you've struggled to pay, every time you've given money you couldn't afford to lose to someone who needed it more. His dark eyes met hers. You're exactly who you appear to be, Maya. That's why my uncle is suspicious. People like you don't exist in my world. Maya felt exposed, violated by the surveillance, but also strangely understood. You've been having me followed? For your protection as much as my own. I needed to know if anyone from my world was targeting you because of your connection to Sofia. And are they? Dante hesitated, which was answer enough. Who? Maya asked, her heart starting to pound. A rival family, the Morettos. They've been looking for leverage against me for years. Dante moved closer, his expression intense. When you accepted my offer, when you became part of Sofia's life, you became a potential target. That's why Marco drives you everywhere, why guards are always present, why I had you move from your old apartment. Maya blinked. Wait, what? I didn't move. Not yet. But you are. Today. Dante pulled out his phone and showed her photos of a beautiful brownstone apartment in a much better neighborhood. This is yours now. Fully furnished, security system, located between the penthouse and my primary residence, so you're always close if Sofia needs you. I can't accept that. An apartment? That's insane. You can and you will. Your current place has no security, the locks are a joke, and it's in a neighborhood where 3 muggings happened last week alone. Dante's voice was firm. I won't have you at risk because of your association with my family. This isn't optional, Maya. Maya stared at him, overwhelmed. You're making decisions about my life without asking me. I'm keeping you safe. There's a difference. Is there? Maya felt anger rising, hot and unfamiliar. Because it feels like you're trying to control me. Like I'm not a person who gets a say in her own life anymore. Dante's jaw tightened. Would you prefer I let the Morettos find you alone in that basement studio with no protection? Because that's what will happen if you stay there. They're watching you, Maya. They have been since the day you walked into my home. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. What? Marco will explain everything. But right now, Sofia is waiting for you, and she doesn't need to hear about threats and danger. Dante's expression softened slightly. Please, Maya, let me keep you safe. It's the least I can do after you've given my daughter so much. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to insist on her independence. But the fear in Dante's eyes was real, and the implication that she was being watched by dangerous people made her stomach turn. Fine, she said quietly. I'll move, but we're going to have a serious conversation about boundaries and consent, because I won't live like a prisoner just because you're worried about me. Agreed. Dante looked relieved. Thank you. Marco appeared at Maya's side. I'll help you pack your things this afternoon. The new apartment will be ready by tonight. Maya nodded numbly and walked toward Sofia's room, her mind spinning. In less than 2 weeks, her entire life had been dismantled and rebuilt. New job, new clothes, new apartment, new dangers she hadn't known existed. She'd thought accepting Dante's offer would solve her problems. Instead, she'd traded one set of struggles for another, far more complicated and dangerous. But when she entered Sofia's room and saw the little girl sitting on her bed with her Braille books, her face lighting up at Maya's approach, none of it mattered. Is everything okay? Sofia asked, her perception sharp. I heard Uncle Sal's voice. He's mean. Everything's fine, Maya said, settling beside Sofia on the bed. Want to keep reading about Charlotte and Wilbur? Yes. Sofia found her place in the book with growing confidence. I got to the part where Charlotte writes some pig in her web. That's my favorite part. As Sofia's fingers moved across the Braille dots, reading about friendship and loyalty and love that transcended differences, Maya made a decision. Whatever dangers came with being part of Dante Caruso's world, whatever complications and fears and threats awaited her, she would face them, because this little girl needed her. And Maya Chen had learned long ago that when someone needs you, you don't walk away, even if staying might cost you everything. The brownstone apartment was beautiful in a way that made Maya's chest ache. Exposed brick walls, high ceilings with original molding, hardwood floors that gleamed in the afternoon light streaming through tall windows. The furniture was tasteful and comfortable, a cream-colored sofa, a dining table that could seat 6, a bedroom with a bed so soft Maya sank into it like a cloud. But what struck her most was the second bedroom, converted into a study. There was a desk with a new laptop, bookshelves already filled with resources about teaching blind children, and most touching of all, a framed photo on the desk. Maya picked it up with trembling hands. It was a picture of her and Tommy from 10 years ago, one she'd thought was lost forever in the chaos after her parents died. Tommy was grinning at the camera, his clouded eyes aimed slightly wrong but his joy absolutely right. Maya's 12-year-old self had her arm around his shoulders, both of them laughing at something their mother had said. "I found it in a box in your old apartment," Marco said from the doorway. "Thought you might want it displayed." Maya wiped at her eyes quickly. "Thank you. I didn't even know I still had this. Mr. Caruso thought you'd want reminders of your brother, since he's such an important part of why you're here." Marco gestured to the bookshelves. "These are all yours. Anything else you need, just let me know." After Marco left, Maya stood in her new study, holding the picture of Tommy and feeling the weight of how much her life had changed. 2 weeks ago, she'd been nobody, invisible, drowning. Now she had an apartment that felt like a home, a job that mattered, and a little girl who'd somehow carved out a permanent space in Maya's heart. She should have felt grateful, and she did. But underneath the gratitude was a growing unease. Dante Caruso had rearranged her entire existence with the casual efficiency of someone who was used to controlling everything around him. He'd given her safety and security and purpose, but he'd also made her dependent on him in ways that felt dangerous. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Sal Caruso. We should talk. Alone. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Luigi's restaurant on Taylor Street. Come alone." Maya stared at the message, her heart pounding. Dante's uncle, the man who'd questioned her presence so suspiciously, wanted to meet, without Dante knowing, without Marco's protection. Every instinct screamed that this was a bad idea, but Maya had learned long ago that ignoring problems didn't make them disappear. She texted back, "I'll be there." Maya didn't tell anyone about the meeting. She woke up early, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, and took the bus to Little Italy like she used to before Marco became her constant chauffeur. The morning air was cold but not as brutal as it had been a few weeks ago. March was coming, bringing the promise of spring. Luigi's restaurant looked closed from the outside, but when Maya tried the door, it opened easily. The interior was dim, smelling of garlic and tomatoes and old wood. A few men sat at a corner table, their conversation stopping abruptly when Maya entered. "Miss Chen." Sal Caruso stood from a booth at the back, gesturing for her to join him. "Thank you for coming." Maya slid into the booth across from him, hyper-aware of the men at the corner table watching her every move. "What is this about, Mr. Caruso?" Call me Sal, and this is about my nephew making decisions with his heart instead of his head." Sal poured coffee from a pot on the table, sliding a cup toward Maya. "He's a good man, Dante. Smart, strong, loyal. But Sofia is his weakness. He'd burn down the entire city if he thought it would make her happy. That sounds like good parenting, not weakness. In my world, anything you love that much becomes a liability." Sal's eyes were sharp, calculating. "You've been in Dante's home for 2 weeks. You've seen the security, the careful routines, the way everyone watches the shadows. You're not stupid, Maya. You understand why we live this way. Because of your business. Because of our family's history. The choices made by my father and his father before him. Choices that gave us power and wealth, but also enemies." Sal took a sip of his coffee. "The Morettos have been trying to destroy us for 30 years. They killed Dante's wife. Did he tell you that?" Maya's blood went cold. "He said it was a car accident." "It was. A car accident caused by the Morettos tampering with the brakes. They wanted to kill Dante, but got Lucia instead." Sal's voice was hard. Sofia survived but lost her sight. Dante survived but lost everything he cared about. The Morettos have been waiting ever since for another opportunity to strike. And you think I'm that opportunity. I think you're a complication. A variable Dante didn't plan for. Sal leaned forward. But here's what you need to understand. If you stay in Sofia's life, if you become important to her and to Dante, you become a target. The Morettos will use you to hurt them. It's not a matter of if, but when. Maya's hands tightened around her coffee cup. So what are you asking me to do? Leave? I'm asking you to understand what you're signing up for. This isn't just a job, Maya. This is a life sentence in a world that doesn't forgive mistakes. Sal's expression was almost sympathetic. You seem like a good person. You don't deserve to be collateral damage in a war that started before you were born. Does Dante know you're telling me this? Dante is too close to see clearly. He looks at you and sees the answer to Sofia's prayers. He doesn't see the danger he's putting you in. Maya was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Sofia's face when she learned to read, about the way Dante watched his daughter with such fierce love. She thought about the apartment Dante had given her, the security, the new life that had appeared like magic. I appreciate your concern, Maya said finally, but Sofia needs me, and I need to be there for her. Whatever risks come with that, I'll handle them. Sal studied her face for a long moment, then smiled slightly. You're braver than you look, Maya Chen. Or more stupid. Sometimes there's not much difference. Sal stood, pulling out his wallet and leaving cash on the table. But for what it's worth, I think you're good for Sofia. Maybe good for Dante too, though he'd never admit it. Just remember, in our world, the people we love are also the people we endanger. That's the cost of caring. He left, and Maya sat alone in the dim restaurant, feeling the weight of his words settle over her like a heavy blanket. When Maya arrived at the penthouse that afternoon, Dante was waiting in the foyer. His expression was thunderous. Where were you this morning? He demanded. Marco went to pick you up and you were gone. No note, no message. Do you have any idea how worried? He stopped himself, visibly trying to control his anger. You can't just disappear, Maya. Not now. Not with the Morettos watching. I met with your uncle. Dante went, very still. Sal. He wanted to talk to me. Alone. Maya met Dante's gaze directly. He told me about your wife. About what really happened. Dante's jaw tightened. He had no right. Actually, I think I had a right to know. If I'm putting myself in danger by being here, I should understand why. Maya's voice was steady, despite the fear churning in her stomach. You should have told me from the beginning. Would you have stayed if I had? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Would Maya have accepted the job knowing that Dante's wife had been murdered? That Sofia's blindness was the result of an assassination attempt? That the same people might target her next? I don't know, Maya admitted, but I deserve the choice. Dante looked away, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. I was afraid you'd leave. Sofia was finally happy, finally learning, finally believing in herself again. I couldn't risk losing that for her. So you lied. I protected you with ignorance. There's a difference. Is there? Maya threw his own words back at him. Because it feels like you're making the same mistake you accused me of. Controlling my life without my consent. Dante's eyes snapped back to hers, and for a moment Maya saw the dangerous man underneath the worried father. The man who'd built an empire in the shadows, who'd survived in a world where weakness meant death. You're right, he said finally, the admission seeming to cost him. I should have told you everything from the beginning. I should have given you the choice. He moved closer, his voice dropping. But I'm telling you now, Maya. The Morettos are watching you. They're waiting for an opportunity to use you against me, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if you hate me for it. I don't hate you. The words came out softer than Maya intended. I'm just scared, and I don't like feeling like I don't have control over my own life. I know, and I'm sorry. Dante reached out, then seemed to think better of it, his hand dropping back to his side. But I need you to trust me. Trust that I know how to navigate this world, how to keep you and Sofia safe. Before Maya could respond, Sofia's voice rang out from deeper in the penthouse. Maya, is that you? I finished reading the whole chapter by myself. The joy in her voice cut through the tension like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Maya looked at Dante, seeing her own conflict reflected in his eyes. We'll talk more later, she said quietly. Right now, Sofia needs me. Maya. Dante caught her arm gently as she moved past him. Thank you. For staying. For not running when Sal gave you every reason to. Their eyes held for a moment too long. Something unspoken passing between them. Then Maya pulled away and went to find Sofia, leaving Dante standing alone in the foyer with the weight of his gratitude and his guilt. Over the next month, Maya fell into the rhythm of her new life. Every day she worked with Sofia, watching the little girl blossom with confidence. They'd progressed beyond simple words to full sentences, and Sofia was reading chapter books with growing fluency. But more importantly, Sofia was learning to navigate her world with joy instead of fear. Maya taught her how to identify rooms by their sounds and smells, how to move through spaces with confidence, how to ask for help when she needed it without feeling ashamed. You have superpowers, Maya told her one afternoon as they practiced pouring drinks without spilling. Your hearing is better than most people's. Your sense of touch is incredible. Your memory for voices and sounds is like having a recording device in your brain. Really? Sofia's face lit up. Really? You just need to trust your abilities instead of focusing on what you can't do. They went on outings to museums with tactile exhibits, to parks where Sofia learned to navigate playground equipment by feel, to restaurants where Maya taught her how to order for herself and handle money independently. And slowly, Maya noticed something else changing. Dante was around more often. He'd always been present, but now he actively participated in Sofia's lessons, asking questions, learning the techniques Maya used, genuinely trying to understand his daughter's experience. Sometimes Maya would catch him watching her with an expression that made her breath hitch. Not the gratitude she'd seen before, but something deeper, something that felt dangerous in an entirely different way than the Morettos and their threats. One evening, after Sofia had gone to bed, Dante asked Maya to stay for dinner. They sat at the massive dining table, the city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and ate the meal his chef had prepared. She's changing, Dante said quietly. Sofia. She's becoming who she was supposed to be before the accident stole her confidence. She's always been that person. She just needed someone to believe in her. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Children know when you see them as problems versus people. Sofia felt like a problem to be solved. Now she feels like a person with unique abilities. Maya took a sip of wine, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. You did that too, you know. You never stopped believing she could do anything. I just didn't know how to help her access those abilities. Dante's dark eyes studied her face. You gave me the tools to be a better father. The words hung between them, intimate and charged. Maya felt her face flush, suddenly aware of how alone they were, how domestic this felt. Dinner together, talking about his daughter, the soft lighting making everything feel more vulnerable. I should go, Maya said, standing abruptly. It's late. Maya, wait. Dante stood as well, moving around the table toward her. I need to tell you something. Her heart hammered. What? The Morettos made contact. They sent a message through an intermediary. Dante's expression was grim. They know about you. They know you're important to Sofia. They're planning something. Fear spiked through Maya's chest. What kind of something? We don't know yet, but I'm increasing your security. Marco will be with you at all times, not just for transportation. 2 additional guards will be stationed outside your apartment building, and I want you to start carrying this. He pulled a small device from his pocket. It's a panic button. If anything happens, if you feel threatened at all, you press it, and my people will be there within 90 seconds. Maya took the device with shaking hands. This is really happening. Someone wants to hurt me because I teach your daughter to read. Someone wants to hurt me by taking away people Dante stopped himself. People who matter to Sofia. You're not just her teacher anymore, Maya. You're family. And in my world, that means you're protected with everything I have. People he what? The unfinished sentence hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. I should really go, Maya repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. This time Dante didn't stop her, but as Marco drove her home, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the look in Dante's eyes, the words he hadn't said, the way her new life had become impossibly tangled with his. The attack came on a Wednesday. Maya was walking from her apartment to the small cafe 3 blocks away where she'd started getting her morning coffee. Marco was behind her, ever present but giving her space. The March morning was beautiful, warm enough that Maya had left her heavy coat at home. She never saw the van coming. It screeched to a stop beside her, and two men jumped out. Maya had time to think this is it before Marco was there, his gun drawn, his body between her and the threat. "Back in the car," he shouted to Maya. "Now!" But more men appeared, surrounding them. 6 in total, all armed, all focused on Maya with predatory intensity. Maya's fingers found the panic button in her pocket and pressed it hard. Gunfire erupted. Marco took down 2 of the attackers before taking a bullet to the shoulder. He went down hard, still trying to shield Maya with his body. Maya screamed. One of the men grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the van. She fought, kicking and clawing, but he was too strong. She was going to die. Or worse, be taken and used as leverage against Dante and Sofia. Then, like something from a movie, black SUVs appeared from every direction. Men in dark suits poured out, moving with military precision. The attackers who weren't already dead dropped their weapons and ran, but they didn't get far. And then Dante was there, his face a mask of cold fury, pulling Maya away from the man who'd grabbed her. He didn't speak, just wrapped her in his arms and held her so tightly she could barely breathe. "You're safe," he said, his voice rough. "You're safe. I've got you." Maya shook uncontrollably, shock setting in. She'd almost died. She'd almost been taken. Marco was bleeding on the sidewalk, and it was all because she'd wanted a coffee. "Marco," she managed. "He's fine. Medics are already with him." Dante pulled back just enough to look at her face, his hands gentle despite the violence still thrumming through him. "Did they hurt you? Are you injured?" "No, I don't know. I don't think so." Police sirens wailed in the distance. Dante cursed under his breath. "We need to go. Now, before the cops arrive and complicate everything." He guided Maya to one of the SUVs, and they drove away as the authorities converged on the scene. Maya watched through the tinted windows as the neighborhood she'd been trying to navigate transformed into a crime scene. They didn't go to the penthouse. Instead, Dante took her to a house Maya had never seen before, somewhere on the outskirts of the city. It was large and isolated, surrounded by trees and high fences and multiple layers of security. "This is one of my safe houses," Dante explained as he led her inside. "No one knows about it except my most trusted people. You'll stay here until we deal with the Morettos permanently." Maya's legs gave out, and she sank onto a couch in the living room. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her feeling hollow and terrified. "They almost took me. But they didn't." Dante knelt in front of her, his hands on her knees, his dark eyes intense. "They failed. And they're going to pay for even trying. Marco is already in surgery. The bullet went through clean. He'll make a full recovery." Dante's jaw tightened. "He did his job. He protected you. He almost died protecting me. That's what he's paid to do. What we're all willing to do." Dante's hands tightened on her knees. "Because you're worth protecting, Maya. You're worth everything." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She looked at Dante's face, at the fear and fury, and something else written there, and suddenly understood what had been building between them for weeks. "Dante, I know. This is complicated. You work for me. You're Sofia's teacher. There's 100 reasons why this is a terrible idea." His voice dropped to something raw and honest. "But I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting to protect you. To be near you. To..." He stopped himself, seeming to realize he was saying too much. "To what?" Maya whispered. Dante stood abruptly, putting distance between them. "To make sure you're safe. That's all. You're important to Sofia. That makes you important to me." But Maya had seen his face, heard the tremor in his voice. This wasn't just about Sofia anymore. Maybe it had never been just about Sofia. "I need to rest," Maya said, because she didn't know how to navigate this new revelation on top of everything else that had happened. "Is there somewhere I can lie down?" Dante showed her to a bedroom upstairs, clean and sparse but comfortable. "I'll be downstairs if you need anything. Try to sleep. You're safe here, Maya. I promise." After he left, Maya lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to process everything. In the span of 6 weeks, she'd gone from invisible to invaluable, from alone to protected, from broke to secure. But the cost was higher than she'd imagined. She'd been shot at. Her security guard had been wounded defending her, and now she was hiding in a safe house because a family of criminals wanted to use her as leverage. And underneath all of that terror and chaos, she couldn't stop thinking about the look in Dante's eyes when he'd held her. the way his voice had broken when he'd said she was worth everything. Maya closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but all she could see was Dante's face. All she could feel was the ghost of his arms around her, keeping her safe in a world that suddenly felt more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. 3 days passed in the safe house. Dante came and went, always returning with updates about the Morettos, about the investigation, about Marco's recovery. Sofia called every day, worried about Maya, and asking when she'd come back to continue their lessons. "Soon, baby," Maya promised during one call. "I just need to stay somewhere safe for a little while." "Are the bad people trying to hurt you because of me?" Sofia's voice was small and scared. "No, sweetheart. This has nothing to do with you. The bad people are angry at your papa, not at you. But you got hurt anyway. I didn't get hurt. I'm completely fine." Maya forced cheerfulness into her voice. "And I'm using this time to find even more cool things to teach you. Did you know there are Braille versions of comic books?" Sofia's excitement was immediate, and the conversation shifted to safer topics. But after they hung up, Maya felt the weight of her new reality settle over her again. On the 4th morning, Dante came to her room earlier than usual. His expression was serious, but there was also relief written there. "It's over," he said simply. "The Morettos have been dealt with." Maya sat up in bed, her heart pounding. "What does that mean? Dealt with how?" "It means they won't threaten you or Sofia again. Ever." Dante's voice was flat, emotionless. "That's all you need to know." Maya understood what he wasn't saying. The Morettos were dead. Dante had killed them, or had them killed, with the brutal efficiency of a man who'd learned to survive by eliminating threats permanently. She should have been horrified, should have run from this man who could order deaths with a phone call. But all she felt was relief that Sofia was safe, that she could go back to her life, that the immediate danger had passed. "What happens now?" Maya asked quietly. "Now you come home. Back to your apartment, back to teaching Sofia." Dante moved closer, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Back to your life. Will there be others? Other families that want revenge or leverage?" "Always. That's the reality of my world." Dante's expression was honest, almost vulnerable. "But I'll protect you from all of them. I swear it, Maya. No one will hurt you while I'm alive." The promise was both comforting and terrifying. Maya was beginning to understand that Dante Caruso's protection came with invisible chains, tying her to him in ways that went beyond employment or gratitude. "I want to go home," she said. "See, Sofia, get back to normal. Then let's go home." Marco picked them up an hour later, his arm in a sling but otherwise looking healthy. He smiled when he saw Maya, relief evident on his usually stoic face. "Good to see you in one piece, Miss Chen." "Thanks to you." Maya's throat tightened. "I'm sorry you got hurt because of me. Part of the job, and worth it." Marco met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "You're family now. We protect family." The word kept appearing. Family. Maya had lost hers years ago, never expecting to find another. But somehow, impossibly, she'd stumbled into Dante Caruso's world and been claimed by it. When they arrived at the penthouse, Sofia was waiting in the foyer, practically vibrating with excitement. The moment she heard Maya's voice, she launched herself forward. "Maya, you're back. I missed you so much." Maya caught her in a tight hug, breathing in the little girl's strawberry shampoo, feeling her small arms wrapped around her neck with fierce affection. "I missed you too, sweet girl. So much." They spent the afternoon reading together, Sofia showing off all the progress she'd made during Maya's absence. She'd taught herself 3 new chapters of Charlotte's Web, her fingers flying over the Braille dots with growing confidence. "I practiced every day," Sofia said proudly, "because I knew when you came back I wanted to show you how much I learned." "You're amazing, Sofia. Absolutely amazing." As the afternoon turned to evening, Dante appeared with dinner for all of them. They ate together in the dining room, Sofia chattering excitedly about everything she wanted to learn next, while Dante and Maya exchanged glances across the table that carried the weight of shared trauma and unspoken feelings. After Sofia went to bed, Maya helped clean up the dinner dishes, something she'd never done before. But the domestic routine felt right somehow. Dante worked beside her in comfortable silence, and Maya was struck by how normal this felt, how much like a family. "Maya," Dante said quietly as they finished, "can we talk?" Her heart jumped. "Of course." They sat in the living room, the city lights providing soft illumination through the massive windows. Dante looked nervous. which was so unlike him that Maya felt her own anxiety spike. These past few days, thinking about you in danger, knowing I'd put you at risk by bringing you into my world. Dante ran a hand through his hair. It made me realize something I've been avoiding. What's that? That I care about you, not just as Sofia's teacher, not just as someone under my protection. His dark eyes met, hers with painful honesty. I care about you as a person, Maya. As a woman. And I know that's complicated and probably inappropriate, but I can't keep pretending otherwise. Maya's breath caught. She'd known, of course. I'd felt the pull between them growing stronger every day. But hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that terrified her. Dante, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything from you. He held up a hand. You've been through hell this week. The last thing you need is your employer confessing feelings. I just needed you to know. Needed to be honest. Maya studied his face, seeing the vulnerability there, the fear of rejection, the hope he was trying to hide. This powerful, dangerous man who commanded respect and fear from everyone around him was sitting before her asking for nothing, offering everything. I care about you too, Maya heard herself say. I tried not to. Tried to keep it professional, to remember I'm just the hired help. But somewhere between teaching Sofia to read and hiding in your safe house and having your security chief take a bullet for me, I stopped being able to pretend. Dante's expression transformed, hope blooming across his features. You do? I do. But this is complicated, Dante. You're my employer, Sofia's father, a man involved in things I don't understand and probably shouldn't know about. Maya's voice trembled. And I don't know how to navigate any of this without potentially hurting Sofia. Sofia adores you. Having you in our lives and our family would only make her happier. Dante moved closer, his hand reaching out to gently cup Maya's face. But you're right. This is complicated, so we take it slow. We figure it out together. No pressure, no expectations. Just seeing where this goes. His thumb stroked across her cheekbone, and Maya felt herself leaning into the touch, into the warmth and safety he represented. Okay, she whispered. Slow. Together. Dante smiled, and it transformed his entire face. He looked younger suddenly, less burdened by the weight of his dangerous world. Okay. They sat together on the couch, not touching beyond his hand on her face, and talked until midnight. About Maya's childhood, about Dante's life before his wife died, about Sofia and Tommy and all the people they'd loved and lost. When Marco finally appeared to drive Maya home, she felt lighter than she had in years. The danger hadn't disappeared. The complications of Dante's world hadn't magically resolved. But for the first time since her parents died, Maya felt like she belonged somewhere. Like she'd found a family worth fighting for. As she lay in bed that night in her beautiful brownstone apartment, Maya thought about the trajectory of her life. 6 weeks ago, she'd been invisible, exhausted, drowning. Now she was a teacher, a protector, someone important to people who mattered. She'd stumbled into Dante Caruso's world by accident, delivering a package on a cold, February night. But somehow, impossibly, she'd found her way home. And though the path ahead was uncertain and undoubtedly dangerous, Maya Chen was done running from her life. She was done being invisible. She was finally, beautifully, exactly where she was meant to be. The end epilogue. 6 months later, Sofia Caruso stood on the stage of her school's auditorium, her fingers resting lightly on the Braille script in front of her. The entire school had gathered for the reading competition, and Sofia had volunteered to perform a passage from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. In the audience, Maya sat between Dante and Marco, her hand clasped tightly in Dante's. They'd been officially together for 3 months now, though everyone who knew them agreed they'd been a couple long before making it official. That's my girl, Dante whispered, his voice thick with pride as Sofia began to read. Her small fingers moved across the dots with confidence. Her voice clear and strong as she brought Hermione Granger's words to life. Not a single stumble, not a moment of hesitation, just pure joy in the act of reading, of accessing stories the same way every other child did. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Sofia's face lit up with the biggest smile Maya had ever seen, and she took a confident bow before making her way off the stage with only minimal guidance. She's incredible, Maya said, wiping tears from her eyes. Because of you. Dante kissed her temple gently. You gave her the world, Maya. After the assembly, Sofia ran to them, throwing herself into Maya's arms with the exuberance of a 9-year-old who'd just conquered a mountain. "Did you see? Did you hear? I didn't mess up once. You were perfect, sweetheart. Absolutely perfect." Sofia pulled back, her clouded eyes aimed in Maya's general direction. "Miss Peterson asked if you'd be willing to teach other blind kids at the school. She says you have a gift." Maya looked at Dante, who nodded, encouragingly. "What do you think?" "I think." Maya smiled, looking between this man she'd come to love and the little girl who'd changed her life. "I think I'd like that very much." They walked out of the school together, Maya holding Sofia's hand, Dante's arm around her waist, Marco trailing behind with his ever-present vigilance. They looked like what they were, a family, unconventional, complicated, built from broken pieces and unlikely meetings, but family nonetheless. Maya Chen had spent years being invisible, waiting for her life to begin. She'd never imagined it would start with a dropped package on a cold February night, or that it would lead her here to love and danger and belonging all tangled together in ways she was still learning to navigate. But as Sofia chattered excitedly about the next book she wanted to read, and Dante's hand squeezed hers with quiet affection, Maya knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was finally home, and she was never letting go. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel.